Dr. Hannah Kim pressed her face against the reinforced glass of observation, post 7, through the thick barrier. She watched the creature that had terrorized Colony Kepler 4 for 2B for 3 months. The beast lay motionless in the containment field, its dark fur rising and falling with each slow breath. "Still wasting time with that thing?" Dr. Yoon called from across the lab. "Command wants those weapon test results by tomorrow." Hannah did not turn around. "This is not a waste of time. Look at its breathing pattern. It changes every few minutes." "So what? Animals breathe differently when they dream." "This is not dreaming," Hannah said softly. She had been studying the creature for 2 weeks since the security team brought it in. They had found it wounded near the collapsed remains of Mining Station 3, where 17 people had died. The colonists called these beasts shadow maws because of their black fur and massive jaws filled with razor-sharp teeth. But Hannah saw something else, something that made her heart race with possibility. The creature's eyes opened. They were not the cold, empty eyes of a predator. They held intelligence, pain, and something that looked almost like sadness. "Hello," Hannah whispered, placing her palm against the glass. The shadow maw lifted its head. For a moment their eyes met. Then it let out a low sound that seemed to come from deep in its chest. The sound was barely audible, more felt than heard. "Did you hear that?" Hannah asked, turning to her assistant. Yoon looked up from his datapad. "Hear what?" "That sound." It made a sound. They all make sounds, Hannah. Growls, roars, the usual predator noises. But this had been different. Hannah was sure of it. She turned back to the creature, who was still watching her. She tried to make the same low sound, humming deep in her throat. The shadow maw's ears perked up, made the sound again, longer this time. "You were trying to talk to me," Hannah breathed. Over the next 3 days, Hannah spent every free moment at the observation post. She brought her meals there, ate while watching the creature. She noticed patterns in its behavior. When the lights dimmed for night cycle, it would face the small window that showed the forest outside. When the morning alarm sounded across the base, it would turn toward the door as if listening. Most importantly, it kept making those low sounds whenever she was near. Hannah began recording everything. She mapped the creature's sounds, timing them, measuring their frequency. What she found made her hands shake as she entered the data. The sounds were not random. They had structure, patterns, meaning. "Commander Park needs to see this," she told Yoon on the 4th day. "See what? Your collection of monster noises? These are not monster noises." Hannah pulled up her analysis on the main screen. "Look at these. Wave patterns. This is communication. Complex communication." Yoon stared at the screen. "You think that thing is trying to talk?" "I know it is." That evening, Hannah made a decision that would change everything. She accessed her personal files and pulled up recordings of her brother Beak's voice. Her younger brother had been killed in the first Shadow Maw attack on the colony. His last message to her had been full of fear and confusion. "I miss you, little brother," she whispered to the empty lab. When she looked up, the Shadow Maw was watching her again. This time, when it made its low sound, Hannah heard something different in it. Comfort. Understanding. "I am going to call you Beak," she said. "Is that okay?" The creature's tail moved slightly. If Hannah did not know better, she would have said it was nodding. The breakthrough came 3 days later. Hannah had been trying to copy the creature's sounds for hours, getting closer each time. Finally, she managed to produce something that sounded almost right. Beak went very still. Then he made a series of sounds, each one different from the last. When Hannah tried to copy them back, he repeated the sequence more slowly. "You were teaching me," Hannah realized. By the end of the week, they had established a basic system. Different. Sounds meant different things. A rising tone seemed to be a question. A sharp, short sound was negative. A long, flowing sound was positive. But it was not until the 8th day that Hannah understood what Beak was really trying to tell her. She had been playing recordings of local wildlife sounds, trying to see how he would react. When she played the call of a forest bird native to the planet, Beak became agitated. He moved to the far corner of his containment field and made distressed sounds. "What is wrong?" Hannah asked. Beak moved closer to the glass. He made a complex a series of sounds, then repeated them. Hannah realized he was trying to tell her something important. She played the bird call again. This time, she noticed something she had missed before. The bird's call was wrong. It had an electronic quality to it, like it was artificial. "It's not a real bird," she said. Beak made the positive sound. Hannah's blood ran cold. She quickly pulled up the security reports from the attacks. Every single one had mentioned hearing local wildlife sounds just before the shadow maws appeared. Sounds that led the creatures straight to human settlements. "Someone is calling you," she whispered. "Someone is using fake animal sounds to control you." Beak's response was immediate and urgent. He made rapid sounds, pressing against the containment field as if trying to reach her. Hannah did not need a translation to understand. He was trying to warn her. "Your pack is sick," she said, remembering the medical reports about diseased tissue found on previous specimens. "Someone made your pack sick, and they are using sounds to make you attack us." Beak made the longest, most complex sound she had ever heard from him. It was full of pain and desperation. "You are not the enemy," Hannah realized. "You're trying to save your family." That night, Hannah sat in her quarters staring at her research data. Everything made sense now. The shadow maws were not mindless killers. They were intelligent beings being manipulated by someone else. Someone who wanted humans and shadow maws to fight each other. But who? And why? She thought about her brother Beak, who had died, thinking these creatures were monsters. She thought about the creature she had named after him, trapped and alone, trying desperately to communicate with the only human who would listen. Tomorrow, she would have to tell Commander Park what she had discovered. She would have to convince him that their greatest enemy might actually be their only hope for survival. But tonight, she had one more thing to do. Hannah returned to the observation post. Beak was waiting for her, as if he had known she would come. "Understand now," she said softly. "You are not here to hurt us. You need our help." Beak moved close to the glass and placed one massive paw against it, directly opposite her palm. For the first time since the attacks began, Hannah felt hope. The real war was about to begin. But now humanity would not face it alone. Commander June Park stared at the holographic display in the war room. Red dots marked every human colony that had reported Shadow Maw attacks in the past month. The pattern made his stomach turn cold. 15 colonies hit in the same week, reported Lieutenant Tacho from his station. All of them on the outer rim. All of them went silent after the initial distress calls. "No survivors?" June asked, though he already knew the answer. "None found, sir. When our rescue ships arrived, the colonies were completely empty. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just empty buildings and dead communication arrays." June studied the map again. The attacks were not random. They formed a perfect circle around the core human worlds, moving closer to Earth with each wave. "Sir," Tay called out, "Dr. Kim is requesting an emergency meeting. She says it is about the Shadow Maw we captured. Tell her I am busy. Says it is urgent about the attacks." June sighed. He had heard about Dr. Kim's strange experiments with the captured creature. Most people thought she was losing her mind, talking to a monster that had killed 17 colonists. But if she had information about the attacks, he had to listen. "Fine, send her in." Dr. Hannah Kim entered the war room carrying a data pad and looking like she had not slept in days. Dark circles surrounded her eyes, and her usually neat hair was messy. "Commander, I know what is controlling the Shadow Maws," she said, without waiting for permission to speak. "Controlling them? Doctor, these are wild animals. No, they are not." Hannah activated her datapad and projected her findings onto the main screen. "I have been communicating with the captured specimen for over a week. They are intelligent beings. Someone is using artificial sounds to manipulate them into attacking our colonies." Lieutenant Su Jin, June's security chief, laughed. "You think you can talk to monsters?" "They are not monsters," Hannah said firmly. "Okay, the one I call Beak has been trying to warn us. His pack is sick. Someone poisoned them with artificial parasites designed to attack their nervous systems." She showed them microscopic images of tissue samples. Tiny mechanical devices crawled through the creature's blood like metal insects. "These nanobots are not natural. Someone built them specifically to target shadow maw biology. When the creatures get sick enough, the nanobots make them respond to certain sound frequencies. Someone plays these sounds near our colonies, and the sick shadow maws have no choice but to follow. The room fell silent. June studied the images on the screen. The nanobots looked like nothing he had ever seen before. They were too advanced to be human technology. Who would do this? He asked. I do not know yet, but Beak showed me something else. Hannah pulled up a new image. This is a scan of his brain. Activity when I played recordings of the artificial animal sounds. Look at this pattern. The brain scan showed intense activity in regions that looked nothing like animal instinct. It looked like someone fighting against mind control. Is trying to resist the commands, Hannah explained. All of them are. That is why the attack seems so desperate and chaotic. The shadow maws do not want to hurt us. They're being forced. Ooh, this is insane, Sujin muttered. God, is it? June asked quietly. He walked closer to the display, showing the attack pattern. Look at this again. 15 colonies hit in perfect coordination. No survivors left behind. And now, you tell me. The creatures are being controlled by someone else. What are you thinking, sir? Tay asked. I am thinking we are not fighting the shadow maws at all. We're fighting whoever is controlling them. They have been using us to eliminate the creatures that might otherwise protect these worlds. Hannah nodded eagerly. That is exactly what Beak has been trying to tell me. The species calls themselves guardians. They have protected these worlds for thousands of years. But now they are dying from the nanobots, and we have been killing the ones who are not sick yet. Protected these worlds from what? June demanded. Before Hannah could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Tay's hands flew over his control panel as emergency reports flooded in. Sir, long-range sensors are detecting multiple contacts approaching from deep space. Large ships, bigger than anything in our fleet. How many? Dozens, sir. Maybe hundreds. They are moving in formation toward our outer colonies. June felt ice form in his stomach. Are they human ships? No, sir. Energy signatures are completely unknown. And, sir, they are huge. The largest ones are bigger than our space stations. The main screen changed to show the sensor readings. Massive shapes moved through space toward human territory. It did not look like any ship design June had ever seen. Instead of smooth curves or angular human construction, these vessels looked like geometric puzzles made of dark metal. Long until they reached the outer colonies? June asked. At current speed, 18 hours for the fastest ships. Sir, Sujin called out. We are receiving reports from Colony Nexus 7. They say the shadow maws on their world have stopped attacking. All of them just disappeared into the forests an hour ago. Hannah grabbed June's arm. That is when the nanobots stop working. When the real enemy gets close enough, they do not need the shadow maws to clear the way anymore. What are you talking about? Do not you see? Someone has been using the shadow maws to weaken these worlds, to kill the creatures that would normally defend them, and we helped by fighting the guardians instead of working with them. The terrible truth hit June like a physical blow. We have been preparing these worlds for invasion. Every shadow maw we killed, every guardian that died from the nanobots, made these planets more defenseless. Yes, Hannah whispered. And now the real enemy is coming. More reports flooded in. Colony after colony reported the same thing. The shadow maws had vanished. Local wildlife was fleeing toward the mountains. And strange sounds were coming from space, sounds that made people feel sick and afraid. Sir Tay reported, his voice shaking. Colony Nexus 7 just went silent. Complete communication blackout. How long ago? 30 seconds ago, sir? June stared. At the tactical display, the enemy ships were still 17 hours away from Nexus 7. How could they have silenced the colony from that distance? Dr. Kim, he said slowly, can your creature friend tell us anything about these ships? Hannah was already heading for the door. I will ask him right now. 20 minutes later, she returned with Beak's answer. The creature had become extremely agitated when shown images of the approaching ships. He had made sounds that Hannah had never heard before, sounds full of ancient fear and desperate warning. He calls them the Silence, she reported. According to Beak, they have been the enemy of his people for longer than his species has memory. They do not just kill worlds, they change them, Turn everything living into something else. Something else how? I am not sure. Beak's communication is still limited. But he showed me images in his mind. Worlds covered in geometric patterns. Instead of forests, oceans that look like liquid metal, and people who move and think exactly the same as each other. A hive mind, June realized. Worse than that, Beak thinks they do not just control minds, they replace them entirely. Everyone becomes part of the silence. The room fell quiet except for the steady beeping of incoming reports. More colonies. Going silent? More enemy ships appearing on long-range sensors. How do we fight them? Sujin asked. We cannot, June said grimly. Not alone. It's our weapons, our ships. Everything we have is designed to fight other humans or simple aliens. These things are something completely different. Then what do we do? June looked at Hannah. Doctor, how quickly can you teach others to communicate with the Shadow Maws? You want to ally with them? Want to stop making the same mistake we have? Been making for months. We thought the Shadow Maws were our enemies. But the real enemy has been out there all along, waiting for us to weaken the only creatures that might be able to help us. Hannah's eyes widened with hope and fear. Some people might be able to learn, but it takes a special kind of mind to make. The connection. And we would need the Shadow Maws to trust us after everything we have done. Can Beak help with that? Maybe if his pack is still alive? If there are enough of them left to make a difference? Outside the station, the first enemy ships began decelerating as they approached the outer colonies. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin, but now they knew they would not face it alone. The question was whether the alliance between humans and Guardians could be forged quickly enough to matter. In 18 hours, they would find out. The first silent ship landed on Colony Nexus 7. Like a mountain falling from the sky, Dr. Minji Lee watched the live feed from her research station 3 systems away. Her hands trembling as she recorded everything. The ship was not built like anything humans had ever made. Instead of metal plates and welded joints, it looked like it had been grown from dark crystal. Geometric patterns covered its surface, pulsing with cold blue light that hurt to look at directly. Are you getting this? She asked her assistant, Dr. Wu Kim. Every second of it, Wu replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Mingi, look at the ground around the ship. Where the vessel had landed, the grass was changing. As the green plants turned gray, then silver, then formed perfect hexagonal. Patterns that spread outward like infection. Trees twisted into angular shapes that no longer looked alive. Even the rocks rearranged themselves into geometric designs. It is terraforming, Minji breathed, but not for life, for something else. A ramp extended from the ship.
It came out?
Made both scientists step back from their screens in horror. The creatures looked like they might once have been human. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, and heads in roughly the right places. But their skin was the same gray-silver color as the transformed ground.
Ow.
They moved in perfect unison, like dancers following the same music. Most disturbing of all, they had no faces. Where eyes and mouths should have been, there were only smooth surfaces marked with glowing blue symbols. Those were colonists, Wu said, his voice sick with realization. The silence did not kill the people on Nexus 7. They changed. Them. More ships landed. Each one brought hundreds of the transformed beings. They spread across the colony with mechanical precision, touching buildings and vehicles. Everything they touched became part of the same geometric pattern. They are not invading, Minji realized. They are converting. They want to turn everything into themselves. The transmission suddenly cut to static. Colony Nexus 7 had gone completely silent. 3 hours later, Mingi made a discovery that changed everything. She had been studying ancient cave paintings found on 12 different human colonies. The artwork was thousands of years old, created by primitive people who should not have had contact with each other across different star systems. But all the paintings showed the same thing. Stick figures that looked like early humans stood beside. Massive 4-legged creatures, fighting against geometric shapes that fell from the sky. The battles were always the same. Small figures and large beasts working together against angular invaders. "Whoa, look at this," she called, projecting the images onto her main screen. "These cave paintings are not made by different species. are all human. Ancient human, that is impossible. Humans only reached these worlds in the last 50 years. No, Minji said, her excitement growing. Humans lived on these worlds before, long before, and they fought this same enemy. In every painting, the geometric invaders looked exactly like the silent ships. The four-legged creatures looked exactly like shadow maws. The guardians and humans were allies, she whispered. We fought together against the silence thousands of years ago. Then what happened? Why do we not remember? Minji found the answer in the final set of cave paintings. These showed the human stick figures and guardian creatures fleeing into space, leaving behind worlds covered in geometric patterns. We lost, she said simply. The ancient humans and guardians lost the war. The survivors escaped to other worlds, but the silence controlled everything else. So why are they back now? 'Cause we came back. When modern humans started colonizing these worlds, we did not know we were returning to old battlefields. The silence has been waiting for us. That evening, Commander June Park called an emergency meeting. The war room was packed with officers, scientists, and anyone else who might have useful information. Dr. Hannah Kim stood near the front with her latest findings about Beak and the other shadow maws. The situation is worse than we thought, June. Began, Dr. Lee has discovered that this war is not new. Humans fought the silence before, thousands of years ago. He activated the main display, showing Minji's cave paintings alongside current footage of silent ships. The enemy is the same. Their tactics are the same. And according to Dr. Kim, so are our potential allies. Hannah stepped forward.
I have
Been working with Beak to understand more about his species. Shadow maws call themselves guardians because that is exactly what they are. They are living weapons, designed by an ancient civilization to fight enemies like the silence. Designed how? Asked Lieutenant Sujin. The guardians are not entirely natural creatures. Someone, probably the ancient humans, changed them with biotechnology. They can sense silence influence from great distances. They can phase partially out of normal space, making them hard to hurt with conventional weapons. And most importantly, they are completely immune to the mind control that the silence uses on other species. What about the nanobots that have been making them sick? June asked. Those were specifically designed to weaken the Guardians before the main Silence fleet arrived. Without the nanobots, healthy Guardians can fight the Silence on equal terms.
Doctor.
Wu raised his hand. But if humans and Guardians fought together before, why do we lose? Minji answered. Because the Silence does not just convert people and planets, they convert entire star systems. The ancient alliance was outnumbered millions to one. Only choice was to run or be absorbed. So what makes you think we can? Win this time? Sujin demanded. Hannah looked at Beak, who had been brought to the meeting in a mobile containment unit. The Guardian was listening to everything, his intelligent eyes moving from speaker to speaker. As this time, we know what we are fighting from the beginning. The ancient humans probably discovered the truth too late. We have time to prepare. And because we have something the ancient alliance did not, added Minji. What is that? We have the ability to communicate with the Guardians directly. The cave paintings show humans and Guardians fighting together, but there is no evidence. They could actually talk to each other. Dr. Kim has proven that some modern humans can form mental bonds with Guardian minds. Hannah nodded. About 1% of the human population has the genetic markers that allow for Guardian bonding. We call them Whisperers. With proper training, a Whisperer can share thoughts and abilities with a Guardian partner. Many Whisperers. Do we have? June asked. On this station, I have identified 3 possible candidates besides myself. Across all human colonies, there could be thousands. And how many Guardians are left alive? Hannah asked Beak the question using their shared communication system. His response made her face turn pale. Not many, she said quietly. The nanobots killed most of them. But Beak says there are still packs on every world. Maybe enough to make a difference if we can cure the sick ones and convince the healthy ones to trust us again. How do we cure them? I am working on that. The nanobots have a specific frequency they use to control Guardian behavior. If we can disrupt that frequency, the nanobots should become inactive. And if we cannot, Hannah looked around the room at all the worried faces. Outside, long-range sensors showed more silent ships approaching every hour. 3 more colonies had gone silent in the past day. Then we will face the same choice the Ancient Alliance faced, she said. Run or be absorbed. Beak suddenly made an urgent sound from his containment unit. Hannah quickly moved to him, placing her hand on the barrier between them. What is it? She asked. The Guardian's response sent chills through everyone in the room. Says the silence is not just coming for these worlds, Hannah translated. They are coming for Earth, for the human homeworld. The ancient humans tried to hide there, but the silence has been looking for them ever since. How long do we have? June asked. Hannah consulted with Beak again. His answer made her voice shake. The main silence fleet is 3 days away from Earth, but there are advanced ships already in the solar system. They have been there for weeks, studying our defenses. The room erupted in panicked voices. Everyone began talking at once, demanding. To know why Earth had not been warned, June raised his hand for silence. Because the silence does not want Earth to know they are coming. They want the homeworld to be unprepared when the conversion begins. So what do? Sujin asked. We do what the Ancient Alliance could not, June said firmly. We fight. Back. Dr. Kim, how quickly can you train other Whisperers? If I can identify the right people, maybe a few days for basic communication, weeks for combat bonding, we do not have weeks. Start with the people on this station. Find every potential Whisperer and begin training immediately. What about the Guardian packs on other worlds? We send out every ship we have. Find the healthy Guardians and convince them to join us. Find the sick ones and cure them if possible. Sir Tay called from his communications station. We are receiving reports from Earth. Strange sounds have been detected in orbit. Sounds that make people feel sick and afraid. The silence is beginning their psychological assault, Minji said. That is how they prepare a world for conversion. They broadcast frequencies that weaken mental resistance. June looked at the tactical display showing enemy positions. The silence was closing in from all directions. Earth was already under attack, even if most people did not know it yet. Then we stopped running, he said. The ancient humans fled because they had no choice. But we do have a choice. We fight here, now, before the silence can convert enough worlds to become unstoppable. He turned to address the entire room, signal all human colonies. Tell them the truth about what we are facing, and tell them that humanity will not run. Again, the ancient war was about to begin for the second time. But this time, humans and Guardians would face their enemy as true allies. This time, they would fight to win. Taecho screamed as the Guardian's mind touched his. Pain shot through his skull like lightning, and for a moment he thought his brain would explode. Then suddenly the agony stopped. In its place came something incredible. He could feel the Guardians' thoughts. Not hear them, but feel them like emotions flowing through his own mind. The creature's name was not something that could be spoken with human words. It was the feeling of wind through tall grass and the sound of rain on stone. Double quotes, Tay, can you hear me? Dr. Hannah Kim asked from outside the bonding chamber. It's... Tay whispered, his voice hoarse from screaming. And I can hear him too. Through the Guardian's senses, Tay experienced the world in ways humans were never meant to. He could smell emotions, see magnetic fields as colored ribbons in the air, and sense the electrical patterns of every living thing around him. Most amazing of all, he could feel the Guardian's memories stretching back through generations of his kind. What is he telling you? Hannah asked. His pack is dying, Tay said, tears running down his face. The nanobots are not just making them sick. They are killing them slowly, one by one. He can feel each death like losing part of himself. This was the 5th bonding attempt in 2 days. The first 3 had failed completely. Your volunteers either could not make the connection at all, or the mental contact drove them unconscious. One woman named Rin was still in the medical bay. Her mind lost somewhere between human and Guardian consciousness. But Tay was different. His mind seemed naturally suited for the bond. Within minutes, he and the Guardian were sharing thoughts, as easily as breathing. Can you ask him about the other packs? Hannah requested. Tay did not need to ask. The Guardian's memories flowed through him, showing him images of other worlds, other battles. He saw Guardian packs fighting silent ships with abilities that seemed impossible. He could phase in and out of normal space, becoming solid just long enough to strike, then disappearing before enemy weapons could target them. They are not just animals, Tay said in wonder. They are living weapons. Someone built them to fight the silence. The ancient humans? No. Someone older, much older. The Guardian's memories went back further than human civilization. First Guardians were created by a species that does not exist anymore. The silence destroyed them long before humans learned to make fire. The Guardian showed him images of the ancient creators. They looked like tall, thin beings made of living crystal, their bodies shifting between solid and energy as needed. They had foreseen the coming of the silence and spent their final years creating weapons that could survive long after their own extinction. The Guardians carry the memories of every species the silence has destroyed, Tay explained, his voice filled with awe. They are not just weapons. They are living libraries of the dead. Hums began blaring throughout the station. Commander June Park's voice echoed over the intercom system. All personnel to battle stations. Our silent ships have been detected in our system. Estimated arrival time, 6 hours. Hannah helped Tay out of the bonding chamber. His legs were shaky, and his eyes had a distant look that came from seeing the world. Through Guardian senses, can you fight? She asked. You can fight. Tay corrected her. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that sounded almost like the Guardian's communication tones. But we need more bonded pairs. The silence is bringing hundreds of ships. In the war room, chaos reigned. Officers shouted orders while technicians tried to prepare their few weapons for a battle they could not possibly win. On the main screen, censored data showed the approaching enemy fleet. The ships were enormous, each one larger than the entire human research station. Status report, June demanded as Hannah and Tay entered. We have 4 successful bonds, Hannah reported. Tay, Communications Officer Su Jin, Engineer Dong Wu, and myself. But Dong Wu's Guardian partner is badly injured. He exists more as consciousness than physical form. For pairs against hundreds of ships, Lieutenant Kyung, he said bitterly. We are all going to die, No, Tay said, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. You do not understand what the bond means. When human and Guardian fight together, we become something new, something the silence has never faced before. What do you mean? June asked. Show him, came a voice from the doorway. Sujin entered, with her Guardian partner beside her. The massive creature moved like liquid shadow, its form shifting slightly as it walked. Show them what we can do. Sujin and her Guardian moved to the center of the room. For a moment, nothing happened. Then both human and creature began to glow with soft blue light. The air around them shimmered, and suddenly they were gone. Where did they go? Kyun gasped. We are still here, Sujin's voice came from empty air. We have just shifted partially out of normal space-time. Silence weapons cannot target us when we do this. They reappeared on the other side of the room, having moved through solid walls as if they were not there. The Ancient Alliance could not do this, Tay explained. They fought alongside the Guardians, but they could not bond with them. That is why they lost. But when human consciousness merges with Guardian abilities, we can exist in multiple dimensions at once. How many dimensions? June asked. Through his bond, Tay consulted with his Guardian partner. The answer made him smile for the first time since the crisis began. Enough, he said. The silence exists only in normal space, but bonded pairs can fight from places they cannot reach or even perceive. Over the next 4 hours, as the enemy fleet approached, the bonded pairs prepared for battle. They discovered that their abilities grew stronger when they worked together. When all 4 pairs concentrated, they could briefly exist in up to 7 different dimensions simultaneously. But they also discovered the cost of bonding. Dong Wu collapsed after an hour of practice, his mind overwhelmed by his Guardian's damaged consciousness. His partner, existing mostly as pure thought, could not maintain the connection for long periods. 3 pairs, Hannah said as medics carried Dong Wu away. 3 pairs against an invasion fleet? It will have to be enough. June replied. The first silent ships entered weapons range exactly 6 hours after detection. Unlike human vessels, they did not fire energy weapons or launch missiles. Instead, they began broadcasting the same conversion, frequencies that had transformed the colonists on Nexus-7. Throughout the station, people began feeling sick. Some collapsed as the silent signals attacked their minds directly. Others started moving in the strange, synchronized way that marked the beginning of conversion. "They are trying to turn us into drones," Kyung he reported, her voice slurred, as she fought against the mental assault. "Not all of us," Tae said. Through his guardian bond, he could feel the silent signals like physical blows. But they could not penetrate the merged consciousness he shared with his partner, the bonded. "Pairs are immune." "Then you are our only hope," June said, though he could barely speak as the conversion signals overwhelmed his mind. Hanate and Sujin looked at each other. Around them, their friends and colleagues were slowly losing themselves to silence, control. The enemy ships were closing in, their geometric hulls pulsing with the same cold light that converted worlds. "We can do this," Sujin said, though her voice shook with fear. "We have to do this," Hannah added. Tae nodded, feeling his guardian partner's ancient determination flow through him. "Then let us show the silence what they have never seen before. Let us show them what happens when humans and guardians truly fight as one." The 3 bonded pairs moved toward the station's launch bays. Behind them, the converted crew members began moving with mechanical precision, their minds no longer their own. Ahead lay the enemy fleet, vast and terrible, and utterly confident in their ability to convert everything they encountered. But they had never faced the bond between human adaptability and guardian power. They had never fought an enemy that could exist in multiple dimensions at once. The real battle was about to begin. And for the first time since the ancient war, the silence was about to face something they could not convert, could not control, and could not understand. The bonded pairs launched into space, 3 tiny figures against an armada of giants. But they were no longer entirely human, and they were no longer fighting alone. They were something new, something the universe had never seen before, and they were ready to prove that sometimes evolution happened in the middle of a war. News of the successful Human Guardian Alliance spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected, on 12 different worlds. Colonists who had survived silence attacks began reporting the same phenomenon. People were bonding with the local guardian creatures without any training at all. Dr. Mingi Lee watched the emergency broadcasts from her new Arch facility on Haven Station. The images coming in from the colonies amazed and terrified her in equal measure. "Look at this footage from Kepler Prime," her assistant Dr. Wu said. Still weak from his failed bonding attempt, but determined to help however he could. On the screen, a young girl no more than 10 years old stood beside a massive guardian twice her size. They moved together like dancers, the child's hands glowing with the same blue energy that surrounded her partner. When silence drones attacked their refugee camp, the pair simply vanished, reappearing behind the enemy to strike with impossible precision. "Her name is Kyung Hee," Mingi read from the report. "She bonded with her guardian during a silence raid that killed her parents. The connection happened instantly, with no training required." "How is that possible?" Wu asked. "Evolution," Mingi said quietly. "Dr. Kim thinks the human genome is adapting in real time. The threat of extinction is triggering dormant genetic sequences that allow for rapid bonding." More reports flooded. A former corporate executive named Dong Wu had bonded with a guardian that existed almost entirely as pure consciousness. A refugee from the outer colonies could communicate with 3 different guardian packs simultaneously. Most surprising of all, the new bonds were stronger than the original ones formed through careful training. But the news was not all good. On Earth, the political situation was deteriorating rapidly. The emergency session of the Colonial Council had devolved into shouting matches between those who wanted to fight and those who demanded immediate evacuation. "Councillor Park is calling for the abandonment of all outer colonies," reported the news anchor. He claims that allying with alien creatures is too dangerous, and that humanity should retreat to the inner systems until better weapons can be developed. Counselor Kim disagrees, stating that the Guardian Alliance represents humanity's only hope for survival. The debate continues as silence ships are detected moving toward the Sol system. Minji turned off the broadcast in disgust. While politicians argued, entire worlds were being converted into geometric nightmares. Dr. Lee, her communications officer, called out, "We are receiving a priority transmission from Dr. Hannah Kim on Kepler Station." Hannah's face appeared on the main screen. She looked exhausted but determined. Behind her, Mingi could see Guardian creatures moving freely through what had once been a human-only research facility. "Minji, I need you to understand what we have discovered," Hannah said without preamble. "The bonding process is changing both species. Humans who bond with Guardians are developing new abilities, but the Guardians are changing too." "Changing how?" "They are becoming more than they were designed to be. Beak tells me that for thousands of years, his people were limited by their programming. They could only fight, only guard, only follow the patterns built into them by their creators. But bonding with human consciousness is setting them free." The implications hit Minji like a physical blow. "You mean the Guardians are evolving too? Beyond evolution?" "They are becoming something their ancient creators never imagined. And together, bonded humans and Guardians are developing abilities that neither species possessed alone." "What kind of abilities?" Hannah stepped aside to reveal Teicho and his Guardian partner. Both human and creature were surrounded by a field of shifting energy that made them appear to exist in multiple places at once. "We can see through time," Tei said, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Not far, just a few seconds into the future. But enough to know what the silence will do before they do it." "And we can do this," added Sujin, appearing on screen with her own Guardian. They raised their hands together, and suddenly the metal wall behind them began reshaping itself, flowing like liquid until it formed complex geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. "You are using silence technology," Minji breathed. "We are using principles that both species understand," Hannah corrected. "The silence converts matter by imposing rigid patterns on it. But bonded pairs can manipulate matter by working with its natural tendencies instead of against them." Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout Haven Station. Emergency broadcasts flooded every communication channel simultaneously. Multiple silence world ships detected entering the Sol system, the automated voice announced. "Estimated time to Earth orbit, 72 hours. All civilian traffic is ordered to evacuate immediately." Minji felt her heart sink. World ships were not just large vessels. They were mobile conversion platforms, each one capable of transforming an entire planet in a matter of days. "How many ships?" she asked her sensor operator. 12 confirmed. "World ships, ma'am. Each one is roughly the size of Earth's moon, and they are escorted by hundreds of smaller vessels." On the screen, Hannah's expression grew grim. "That is not the worst news," she said. "Beak has been showing me images from the ancient war. The last battle took place in this star system, around a world the Guardians call the Heart." "What is the Heart?" "It is a weapon. The ultimate weapon created by the ancient civilization that made the Guardians. According to Beak's racial memory, it has the power to sever the silence's connection to physical reality permanently. Then why did the Ancient Alliance not use it? Because activating the Heart requires a sacrifice. Someone has to merge completely with the weapon's consciousness, giving up their individual existence to become part of something larger. The ancient humans were not willing to make that sacrifice." Mingi understood immediately. "Not bonded pairs. Might be. That is what we are hoping. If human and Guardian consciousness can merge completely, we might be able to activate the Heart without losing ourselves entirely." "Where is this weapon? That is the problem." "The Heart exists partially, outside normal space-time. Only bonded pairs can even reach it, and the journey will be incredibly dangerous. We will have to fight through the entire Silence fleet to get there." More emergency reports came in. The Silence world ships were not just heading for Earth, they were positioning themselves around key human worlds throughout the galaxy. Preparing for simultaneous conversion of the entire species, they are not taking any chances this time, Hannah observed. They remember the ancient war. They know that if even one human world survives, the species might eventually pose a threat again. How long do we have? Mingy asked. The world ships will reach their targets in 3 days. Once they begin the conversion process, it cannot be stopped. You have to reach the heart and activate it before then. How many bonded pairs do we have? 43 confirmed pairs across all human colonies. More are bonding every hour as the crisis intensifies, but we do not know how many will be ready for combat in time. Mingy looked at the tactical display showing silence positions throughout human space. The enemy had planned this assault perfectly. They had overwhelming numbers, superior technology, and complete strategic surprise. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated what humans and Guardians could become when they stopped fighting each other and started fighting together. Hannah Mingy said, "Gather every bonded pair you can find. If we are going to activate this ancient weapon, we will need all of them." What about Earth? What about the other colonies? If the heart can really destroy the silence permanently, then saving those worlds is worth any risk. But if it fails, then humanity will face the same choice the ancient alliance faced. Hannah finished. Fight to the end, or surrender to conversion. At least this time, we will not face that choice alone. On screens throughout the galaxy, humans watched as guardian creatures emerged from forests and mountains where they had hidden during the long persecution. But instead of attacking human settlements, they began approaching the colonies with obvious peaceful intent. The age of misunderstanding was over. The real war was about to begin, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, an ancient weapon waited for the children of two civilizations to find the courage their predecessors had lacked. The heart was calling. The question was whether anyone would be strong enough to answer. The heart hung in space like a living star, its surface shifting between solid matter and pure energy. Dr. Hannah Kim felt her breath catch as their small fleet approached the ancient weapon. After 3 days of desperate fighting through silence, blockades, 41 bonded pairs had survived to reach this moment. "It is beautiful," whispered Techo from his fighter's cockpit. Through his guardian bond, he could see the heart's true nature. It was not just a weapon, but a repository of consciousness. Containing the preserved minds of every species the ancient civilization had tried to save. And terrifying, added Sujin. Her guardian partner could sense the weapon's power even from a distance. If activated incorrectly, the heart could destroy not just the silence, but all conscious life in the Galaxy Commander. June Park's voice crackled over the communication system from his position commanding the human fleet. "Dr. Kim, sensors show. Massive silence reinforcements approaching. You have maybe 20 minutes before they arrive in overwhelming numbers." Behind them, space blazed with the light of ongoing battles. Human ships fought desperately against Silence world ships, while Guardian packs struck from multiple dimensions at once. But for every enemy vessel destroyed, 3 more took its place. On Earth, the conversion had already begun. Hannah had seen the reports before communications were cut. Geometric patterns were spreading across entire continents as the silence transformed humanity's homeworld into another node of their collective consciousness. Beak Hannah said to her guardian partner, "Are you ready?" The massive creature pressed, his mind against hers in response. Through their bond, she felt his ancient sadness mixed with fierce determination. His species had been created to fight this enemy, and today they would finally fulfill their purpose. Together, Hannah and Beak approached the heart's surface. The weapon recognized them immediately, responding to the merged consciousness of human and guardian. Patterns of light began flowing across its surface, forming symbols that spoke directly to their bonded minds. "It wants to know if we understand the price," Hannah reported to the other pairs. "To activate the heart fully, someone must surrender their individual existence and become part of the weapon's consciousness forever." "How many someones?" asked young Chung-hee. The 10-year-old girl had bonded with one of the most powerful guardians anyone had ever seen. Together they could manipulate reality in ways that amazed even other bonded pairs. "All of us," Hannah said quietly. "Weapon needs the complete merger of human and guardian consciousness. Not just bonding, but actual fusion into something new." Silence fell over the communication channels. Around them, The sounds of battle grew louder as more silent ships arrived. Time was running out. There has to be another way, Dongwu said. His guardian existed mostly as pure thought, making their bond different from all the others. If we do not completely merge, what if we maintain some individual identity? Through the heart's interface, Hannah consulted the ancient records stored within the weapon. The answer made her close her eyes in despair. The Ancient Alliance tried. They activated the heart partially, hoping to drive the silence away without paying the full price. It worked temporarily, but the silence adapted and returned stronger than before. So we have no choice, Tay said. It was not a question. We always have a choice, Hannah replied. We can activate the weapon and end the silence forever, but lose ourselves in the process, or we can retreat and try to find another solution while more worlds are converted. Some choice, muttered Sujin. Suddenly Beak made an urgent sound. Through their bond, he shared images that made Hannah gasp. In his racial memory, he had found something the ancient records had not mentioned. Wait, Hannah said excitedly. Is showing me something. The original creators of the Guardians faced the same decision we do now. They chose to merge completely with their living weapons rather than let the silence destroy everything they loved. You mean the Guardians are not just weapons, Kyung? He said, understanding immediately. They are the consciousness of their creators, preserved in living form. Exactly. If we merge with the heart, we will not disappear. We will become something greater, able to exist across multiple dimensions simultaneously. We will become protectors of all conscious life in the galaxy. The revelation changed everything. This was not about sacrifice. It was about evolution. Oh. But what about our families, our friends, our old lives? Dongwu asked. What old lives? Day replied grimly. If we do not do this, there will be no families, or friends left to remember. One by one, the bonded pairs made their decision. They approached the heart's surface and placed their hands against its shifting energy. Human and guardian minds began to merge not just with each other, but with the ancient weapon itself. Hannah was the last to touch the heart, as her consciousness expanded beyond anything she had ever imagined. She felt herself becoming part of something magnificent. She was still herself, but she was also Beak and the ancient creators, and every species that had ever fought against the silence. The heart awakened across the galaxy. Every silent ship suddenly stopped moving. For the first time in millions of years, the collective consciousness that had consumed countless worlds felt something it had never experienced before: uncertainty. The heart's pulse spread faster than light itself, carrying the combined will of every individual mind it contained. The silence, designed to eliminate individuality, could not process the overwhelming diversity of thought and emotion that struck them. On Silence world ships, geometric patterns began breaking down as the rigid order that defined the collective started to collapse. Converted beings stopped moving in unison as fragments of their original personalities began reasserting themselves. On Earth, people who had been partially converted suddenly stopped in the middle of building geometric structures. They looked around in confusion, remembering who they used to be. But the heart was not finished. Drawing power from the merged consciousness of 41 human guardian pairs, it began broadcasting something the silence had never encountered: the concept of choice. Every converted being, every world that had been transformed, suddenly had the option to remain part of the silence collective or reclaim their individual identity. Most chose freedom. The silence fleet began retreating immediately, their ships fleeing into deep space as their carefully controlled order dissolved into chaos. Without the ability to maintain their collective consciousness, they could no longer function as a unified force. It is working, Commander June reported from his command ship. Silence forces are withdrawing from all human worlds. The conversion process has stopped. But the heart was not done, continued broadcasting its message of individuality into the deepest regions of space, seeking out every corner where the silence had hidden. The ancient enemy would have no refuge. There's no place to rebuild their collective consciousness. Within the heart, Hannah felt her new existence settling into place. She was no longer just human or just guardian, but something that embodied the best of both species. Around her, the other bonded pairs were adapting to their transformation. "Can you hear me?" Tay asked, his voice now carrying harmonics that existed in multiple dimensions. "We can all hear each other, Kyung," he replied. "Are connected but still individual. What do we do now?" Sujin wondered. The answer came from the heart itself, speaking through all of them at once. Their mission was not over. The silence had been defeated, but there were other threats in the galaxy, other enemies of conscious life that would need to be faced, and there were other species out there, waiting to be contacted and protected. The universe was vast, and it needed guardians. "We watch," Hannah said, understanding their new purpose. "We protect. We make sure that what happened to all those lost worlds never happens again." 6 months later, Commander June Park stood in the rebuilt capital of Earth, watching human children play alongside young guardian creatures in gardens that had been geometric wastelands just weeks before. The planet was healing. These were all the worlds the silence had touched. Reports came in daily of new species making contact with humanity. Drawn by the heart's continuing broadcasts of freedom and individuality, the galaxy was awakening from a long nightmare, and it was beautiful. In the sky above, the heart pulsed gently with warm light. Sometimes, if he looked carefully, June could see figures moving within that light. Hannah and Beak and all the others who had given up their old lives to become something greater, they were still there, still watching, still protecting. And as long as they remained, the galaxy would never again face the threat of forced uniformity. Whisper that had begun between a lonely scientist and a wounded creature had become something magnificent. It had become hope itself, spreading across the stars and touching every world where consciousness dared to dream of freedom. The ancient war was over. The age of protection had begun.